The government will listen patiently, even if there are harsh voices, because we believe that our people are patient enough, and when their voices are raised, the pressure that is being put on them is high. The government's job is to hear the voices and help them reach a common understanding to solve the problems that exist in society. We see, hear and recognise officially all the protests, the difficulties and the crises. We emphasise the right to peaceful assembly, which is also recognised in our constitution.
Shopkeepers are on strike and massive protests have erupted in Iran for the third day as the country's currency hit record lows. The rial has lost about 40% of its value since the 12-day war with Israel in June. Protesters were heard chanting, "Don't be afraid, we are all in this together." And the country's central bank chief has reportedly resigned.
A startling number of women daring to defy the religious edicts of Iran's ruling clerics and choosing not to cover their heads, as required here by law since the 1979 Islamic Revolution. Some are even willing to risk talking about it on camera.
You know, people go to jail in this country sometimes, or they get fined. Are you not afraid anymore?
I am afraid, says Saha, but I'm doing this because I don't want a daughter of mine to have the same fear as I do. Other women say they judge situations accordingly. Tehran goes without a headscarf more and more. Just like many other women, she says. But there are places where the morality police are present, then we have to wear it, just like you're forced to wear it.
The changes we've been witnessing here really are extraordinary. Whether they're going to last is another question. Periods of perceived liberalism in Iran have often been followed by crackdowns in the past.
The death of a young woman named Mahsa Amini 3 years ago in police custody after being arrested for an alleged dress code violation prompted massive protests across the country. But they were put down by security forces, hundreds killed and thousands arrested. And only last fall, Iran's parliament voted to increase levels of punishment for hijab violations, bigger fines, longer jail sentences. Iran's president, Masoud Pezeshkian, who campaigned pledging to ease restrictions on women, has so far shied away from implementing the new, tougher legislation. That's also put him under pressure from conservative hardliners. At Friday prayers in a stadium at the University of Tehran, "Down with America" is a familiar refrain. Many here blame Western culture for turning young Iranian women against the hijab, including Fatimeh Hojat. The fact that the hijab law is not implemented properly in the country has exacerbated this issue, she says. Fear that it eventually will be implemented is a constant undercurrent for those daring to lift the veil, staring at a future that could go in either direction. Layla knows it's a risk. There is a possibility of this, she says, but we're trying again to gain this freedom. If they want to take it away, we will try again to live the way we want to live. Meanwhile, the state is using ever more sophisticated technology to monitor women. Surveillance cameras, snapping them in their cars, sending automatic fines and warnings if they're seen to be flouting the rules. There's even an app for hijab monitors, where people can report women to the police online. That's what makes these acts of defiance by Saha and other women like her all the more remarkable. They may be quiet, but they are daily acts of real courage.
Traders have taken to the streets. They're angry because Iran's currency has collapsed and food prices have soared. Iran's currency is called the rial. It has fallen to a record low. It stands at 1.42 million to the US dollar. $1 is worth 1.42 million rial. This has pushed up prices across the board. Basic goods have become unaffordable. The government says it is listening, but the pressure is deeper than one crisis. Years of sanctions and restricted trade have left the economy fragile, and now that pressure is boiling over. Our next report has more.
2025 has been a year of strain for Iran. From regional conflict and rising tensions with Israel and the U.S. to water shortages and power cuts, pressure has come from every direction for the country. Now that pressure is spilling onto the streets. This week, protests have erupted in parts of Tehran. Shopkeepers and traders have taken to the roads. They are frustrated and angry, not only over politics, but over survival. At the center of it all is Iran's collapsing currency. The rial has fallen to nearly 1.42 million to the US dollar. This is its weakest level ever. Just a year ago, it was trading far stronger. For ordinary Iranians, this fall has had an immediate impact. Their savings have lost value, product prices change daily, and running a business has become increasingly unpredictable. Many shopkeepers say they have no choice but to close. Suppliers are reluctant to quote prices, and customers are cutting back on even basic purchases. The pressure is not limited to the markets. Official figures show inflation reached 42.2% in December. Food prices rose by 72%, while health and medical costs jumped 50% compared to last year. For families already struggling, those numbers translate into hard decisions about what to buy and what to go without. The government says it understands the frustration.
The government will listen patiently, even if there are harsh voices, because we believe that our people are patient enough, and when their voices are raised, the pressure that is being put on them is high.
Iran is boiling with anger. As the rial crashes and inflation soars, protesters are delivering a blunt message to the clerical state. Mullahs must leave. For a second straight day, unrest has spilled onto the streets of cities and towns across Iran, driven by a collapsing currency, soaring prices, and mounting anger at the country's clerical leadership. With the Iranian rial plunging to record lows and inflation now estimated above 42%, the protests mark the most serious challenge to the system overseen by Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei in nearly 3 years. Videos circulating online show crowds chanting slogans such as "Mullahs must leave Iran" and "Death to the dictatorship." Iranian-American journalist and author Masih Alinejad described the scenes as a clear rejection of the Islamic Republic. The unrest comes at a moment of acute pressure for Tehran. Iran is still grappling with the aftermath of Israeli and US strikes on its nuclear facilities, alongside the long-term effects of Washington's sanctions regime. The renewed slide of the rial has sharpened daily hardship in a country of more than 92 million people, pushing shopkeepers, students and workers into open protest. One image from the demonstrations has gone viral, showing a lone protester sitting in the road before armed security forces on motorcycles. The photograph has drawn comparisons with the iconic tank man image from Beijing's Tiananmen Square in 1989. While Iran's current protests have not yet resulted in confirmed fatalities, the symbolism of defiance has resonated widely on social media. In Washington, US President Donald Trump condemned Tehran.
From Iran, unfortunately, a dark night in the country for the Iranian people as the Islamic Republic thugs and the Islamic forces have now started the massacre of the protesters. The uprising has now reached a civil war level across the country. We have all the videos that are coming in from Iran, and of course there's a lot of other updates. We also just received some breaking news literally seconds before I came live that the Iranian regime has just conducted a ballistic missile test in one of their provinces. Where did they do this? This was in Ilam province. So we're just getting the video from the ballistic missile test. I will show it to you in the next few minutes. But first, let's talk about what's actually happening. The third day of the uprising in Iran, as multiple towns and cities have now been taken over by the Iranians. And as I mentioned in the previous live streams, it's been a bit of a surprise considering that the security forces were in smaller numbers. They are still in smaller numbers than previously, but having said that, they are now getting violent. So everything I'm going to be showing you guys, just a heads up, obviously it's going to be disturbing. But first, let's go to Kermanshah as more people have taken to the streets. That, and then we'll show you the bad videos.
غیور کرمانشاه شلوغ شده دم شما گرم دم همگی گرم.
So while that's happening, the regime, the Islamic regime's security forces have now opened fire on protesters. The first we can go to Asadabad, which is in Hamadan, and while we do that, I think we're just getting the video from the ballistic missile test as well. Let's just quickly go to the first video of violence. Yeah, now
offered dialogue with protest leaders, calling their concerns legitimate and saying the livelihood of the Iranian people is a daily concern. CNN's Nada Bashir is following this from London for us. Nada, good to have you with us. I mean, the inflation rates, according to statistics coming out of Iran, it's that it's sitting at 42% for the month of December. This is very high. Give me a sense of what reforms the Iranian government could implement to try and ease some of this crisis that's playing out.
Well, look, Eleni, we haven't seen any concrete commitments being offered by the government just yet, just that offer of dialogue with protesters. And we are continuing to see protesters taking to the streets in Tehran. We've seen that video on social media being shared of protesters around Tehran's markets and bazaars, a standoff with police in central parts of downtown Tehran. We're also seeing university students today taking part in marches around the University of Tehran. So we are clearly seeing some momentum building in these protests taking place across the country. And as you mentioned, this is all surrounding this economic crisis that we are seeing in the country with inflation rising. And this is a real daily struggle for many in the country. We're seeing a sharp increase in the prices of food, of essential medical supplies, of gas prices. So people are really feeling this at home on a daily basis, and this has clearly sparked a lot of anger and uproar in the country now, particularly as there has been some indication of potential tax rises in the new year as well. So clearly a lot of dissatisfaction with how the government is handling this economic crisis. And of course, when it comes to the situation with regards to foreign relations, there is concern around comments being made by the US President Donald Trump around potentially taking further action if Iran seeks to rebuild its nuclear capabilities. And of course, those tensions remain high following that 12-day war that we saw just a few months ago. So clearly there is a huge feeling of unease amongst the Iranian population. At this stage, what we have seen in terms of tangible action is, according to state media, the resignation of the head of the central bank, Mohammad Reza Farzin. Rumours had been circulating around his possible resignation in response to this economic crisis. But clearly, a lot of dissatisfaction still. We are hearing calls still for shops, markets in the bazaar to be closed. I spoke to one Iranian contact yesterday who said, in his words, when the bazaars close, governments tremble. And of course, important to remember that the shopkeepers, merchants played a key role in the Iranian revolution. So there is certainly a lot of history there with regards to the potential power behind these protests, if indeed they do continue to escalate and spread.
All this protest erupting in the western city of Hamedan. Iranians voicing their anger as Iran's currency hits an all-time low and inflation soars. And in Tehran, shopkeepers hit by the currency, are playing a major role in the demonstrations. Take a look at this, which are the largest since Mahsa Amini died in police custody in 2022. Now, elsewhere in the capital, footage is showing us a standoff with police. The tension and smoke hanging thick in the air. For perspective now, I want to bring in Abbas Aslani. He is a senior research fellow at the Center for Middle East Strategic Studies based in Tehran. Abbas, really good to have you with us. You're based in Tehran. I want you to give me a sense of, firstly, what you're seeing on the ground in terms of these protests, and importantly, the inflationary impact on average Iranians.
Aleni, thank you for having me. In order to understand the current pulse on the streets in Tehran, we need to appreciate the nuances of the situation. Let's identify the epicenter of this. This started and originated from the Grand Bazaar in Tehran, which is the heartbeat economy of the capital city. And so it happened as a result of the fluctuations in the currency as well as gold markets, which resulted in the increasing prices of the other commodities. And they say that when the market sneezes, the rest of the economy catches cold, or this could create, let's say, economic hardship for the other parts of the country. But it is important to remember that these protests should not, let's say, make us to make a mistake that a localized protest for a widespread, let's say, uprising in the country. In terms of the size and the scale of the protest, it seems to be remaining relatively small. Geographically, it has been.
See, where is Sky News? Where is CNN? Where are all these networks in covering what's happening in Iran right now? Protests against a barbaric, evil, brutal regime in the Islamic Republic. 47 years of cruelty. 47 years of being treated like slaves. 47 years of an occupation by an anti-Iranian, anti-Iran regime. Right now, people are fighting. Right now, they're fighting with their empty hands against a regime that thinks nothing of Iranian lives, that's held a nation hostage. But yet, it was okay when it came to Palestine, wall-to-wall coverage. When it came to that, right? You didn't think twice about that. You didn't have your so-called excuses about we need to verify stuff with that. But when it comes to Iran, you go quiet. When it comes to Iran and people saying they want Pahlavi, you go quiet. And this despite United Kingdom being a constitutional monarchy, but yet the BBC can't bring themselves to cover it because they want a leftist, socialist, communist agenda. Or they're so frightened about even taking on the Islamic Republic, or the fact they had Islamic in the name of the so-called country that the Islamic Republic have given Iran. The real country is Iran. Iran is a country of the lion and sun flag. Iran is the country of the Shah. There is no history without monarchy. Iranians are telling you what they want. They want Iran back. The true Iran. The real Iran. They want Pahlavi back. Reza Pahlavi. Because they remember what they had prior to this cult of misery called the Islamic Republic. Yet the mainstream media yet again goes quiet and just selectively chooses when it wants to publish and show coverage of things. It's beyond a disgrace. 47 years of a population that's trying their best. And wherever they've gone in the world, they've been a positive contribution to that society. Yet go quiet when it comes to this fight against an evil regime that has spread terror and mayhem all across the world. Is the
Iranian here with another pro tip for anyone who's not from the Middle East. In order to understand why Iranians are fighting against the Islamic Republic and want their Shah to return, there are 3 facts that you just have to accept. Number 1, Iran